What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here, back with another Week 11 college football preview, and we are headed down to SEC country, down in Oxford, Mississippi, in a primetime game kicking off at 6 p.m. Central Time, live on ESPN, as we have the number 11 Texas A&M Aggies headed to face the number 15 Ole Miss Rebels in Vaught Hemingway Stadium in a huge SEC West matchup this weekend. It was really going to serve as an elimination matchup in the SEC West. Both these teams have to win this game to even have like pipe dream shots of making the SEC championship. They're much more real for A&M right now because they hold the tiebreaker over Alabama, but both of these teams are still mathematically eligible to find a way to get to the Atlanta to face Georgia for the SEC championship next month. Now, let's set the stage before getting into the game. The Aggies come into this one 7-2, 4-2 in the SEC, coming off a huge 20-3 win over number 13 Auburn and Kyle Field. And these Jimbo Fisher-led Aggies are looking to be the dark horse in college football this year, man. They're looking to make a run for that championship, do it on the back of strong defense and explosive rushing attack. And this weekend will be a huge test for both of those units for the Aggies against this explosive offense for Ole Miss and also pretty stout front seven at times. So we will definitely see how the Aggies look. But the Rebels, man, enter at 7-2, 3-2 in the SEC, coming off a huge win over Liberty to spoil Hugh Freeze's return to Oxford. Now, Lane Kiffin sets his sights on trying to take down Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M, and they're looking to do it on the back of an explosive offense, a hopeful in Matt Corral, looking to have his Heisman moment in prime time this weekend. Now, this series stretches back to 1911, long history, but did not become a yearly occurrence until A&M joined the SEC in 2012. Currently, the Aggies lead the series 9-3 and are currently on a three-game win streak over the Rebels, with their last win coming in 2016. Now, the table's set. We have a giant SEC West matchup, strong defense versus one of the best offenses in the country. So let's get down to the keys of the game. For the Aggies this weekend, it lies on the ground, man. This deadly 1-2 punch between Isaiah Spiller and Devin Achane. I mean, this Aggies offense works off the rushing attack. Zach Calzada benefits from what Spiller and Achane do on the ground, and their rush game has been one of the best week in and week out for the Aggies. And Calzada keeping the pressure off of him, allowing him to manage the game and make his handful of plays he needs to win the game have been key for Texas A&M. Now, a two-headed monster, currently averaging almost 200 yards per game, over 5.5 yards per carry for the season. And this was going to be the number one key for this Aggies offense because they're facing an Ole Miss defense allowing almost 200 yards per game on the ground and over 4 yards per carry. So they should be able to take advantage of this rush defense for the Rebels. And it starts with Spiller, over 870 yards rushing, over 6 yards per carry, and 5 touchdowns. Top three in the conference in rushing yards, top six in yards per carry, and top eight in rushing touchdowns in the SEC for Spiller. While a chain 706 yards rushing, over 7.5 yards per carry, 5 touchdowns. He's second in the SEC in yards per carry, top seven in rushing yards, and also top eight in rushing touchdowns. So they have two guys that can take over a game. And these guys were the focal point down the stretch against Auburn last week, where they really pulled out a giant win and to really establish themselves as one of the top contenders in the SEC this year. Now, it's really been the offensive line also that has helped them. Running off the left side of their offensive line with Jameer Johnson at offensive tackle is going to be something to watch this weekend against the Rebels, man. They've rushed for almost 1,000 yards, over 7 yards per carry, 5 touchdowns, generated 30 explosive runs when running off the right side of the football, man. I mean, running off the left side of their offensive line. If they run to the left, they have just been more efficient. The offensive line has dominated that side of the football, and that's something Lane Kiffin and this Ole Miss team are going to have to look out for because it's going to be a factor down the stretch this weekend. Because if you're A&M, you're going to want to do everything possible to keep that Ole Miss offense on the sidelines as much as possible. winning the time of possession battle with this rushing attack is going to be key for the Aggies, while also finding a way to take the crowd out of it in what I'm sure is going to be an electric environment for this top 15 matchup in Oxford. I've been down there for a game, one of my favorite stadiums. It's going to be crazy down there. Now, the passing attack has been a factor, though. It was the focal point when they beat Alabama, but Zach Calzada has really been the heart and soul of this team. You look at their two biggest wins: his knee injury against Bama and his shoulder injury against Auburn. He found a way to not only overcome those injuries, but come in and make some key plays to keep this team alive, and is going to have to play big this weekend. You look at his big throw against Auburn in the third quarter where he hit a 50-yard bomb to set them up to take the lead in the third quarter with a field goal. That has been like Zach Calzada has played so I would say he's been very brave as a quarterback, man, to overcome the injuries, stand in the pocket, and take some real big shots. And he doesn't shy away from the big moment. Yes, he may not have been the starting quarterback, coming out of fall camp, but he's really established himself as a leader of this team. Now, Calzada over 1,500 passing yards, 12 touchdowns, 7 picks, one rushing touchdown. He's top 10 in passing yards and top 8 in the SEC in passing touchdowns. But when you look at the breakdown, he's really thrived on the deep ball. They haven't taken a lot of shots, but when you look at last week when they did, he could hit on them. And that's something that Jimbo Fisher, against a secondary that is prone to giving up some big plays, will he let Calzada uncork some things deep? On deep passing attempts, he has 5 touchdowns, 1 pick, 9 big time throws, and almost a 92 PFF passing grade. That shows how efficient he is when he gets to take his limited shots. And the reason also could be because they set it up so perfectly with the run game. They do a great job of running the ball, running the ball. When they notice that you're not paying attention to the deep pass, Calzada is accurate enough and explosive enough to hit you over the top. Now, the wide receiving unit is strong, but like I said last week, man, Anaya Smith and Jalen Watermeyer are going to be big factors. Anaya Smith, 6 touchdowns, almost 400 yards receiving with over 35 catches. Watermeyer was a big part of their offense early, establishing the short pass game for the Aggies against Auburn. 30 catches, over 400 yards, and 4 touchdowns with a big tight end. He's a matchup nightmare, and it's going to be key to see how Ole Miss contains Watermeyer at that tight end spot because they can utilize him in so many different ways. And he's a big play waiting to happen just because of his size and athleticism. So that's really the keys for the Aggies for me. Now, for the Rebels, it lies in their top player on the offensive side of the ball, and that is Matt Corral. He's currently one of the Heisman Trophy favorites, according to most sources in the country right now. And this offense really starts and ends with what Corral can do with not only his legs, but also his arm. And having an elite game against one of the best defenses he's seen this year is going to be key. He currently leads the Rebels in both passing and rushing, and for an offense averaging over 500 yards per game, just about, and ranks top 20 in scoring with almost 38 points per game. The Ole Miss offense is one of the best in the country, and it's really due to what Corral can do and what he opens up for the running backs and the wide receivers stepping up. Now, when you look at what Corral's done, man, he's completed over 66% of his passes, 2,500 yards, 16 passing touchdowns, 10 rushing, only 2 turnovers, and over 500 yards rushing. Corral does it all. Top 3 in the SEC in passing yards, top 5 in completion percentage, 6th in passing touchdowns, 2nd in yards per attempt, 4th in QBR. He's in the top half of the FCC for every major statistical category for quarterbacks. And his specialty is when things break down in the pocket, he can be deadly, and it makes it hard for him to slow down when he faces any defense. Almost 300 yards rushing on just pure scrambles when things break down, over 7 yards per scramble, and 12 first downs on broken plays, 5 explosive runs, and over 100 yards after contact. So even if you can get pressure, you have to find a way to bring Corral down. He can be electric if you can't get to him, but even if you get to him, you have to stay disciplined in your pass rush lanes or things to get out of hand quickly for your defense, and Corral can make you pay in multiple ways. So A&M has a very big test this weekend to try to contain Corral, not only with his legs, but his arms as well. You have to try to make him not as dynamic as a playmaker because he can make plays in so many variety of ways. Now, The underrated part of this offense has been the rushing attack outside of Corral. This rushing attack is averaging over 260 yards per game on the ground, almost 3 touchdowns per game on the ground, and that's one of the best marks in the entire country. Now, Henry Parrish, man, over 400 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. Snoop Connor has had a big year, and also Jerry and Ely as well. All three of these guys are are some of the top running backs in the SEC right now, and they have a great rotation where they can keep fresh bodies in. And depending on what you're game planning for, each one of these guys can do something unique for the offense, and especially even in the passing game where most of these guys are some of the top pass catchers in for this offense and can really be dynamic out of the backfield. It really opens up the playbook for Lane Kiffin and this offensive staff because you can have any sort of running back duo in the game and you can trust them to go be a pass catcher and really allow you to open up your playbook regardless of what personnel you have in the game. Now, the rushing attack is extremely hard to stop due to how they are able to attack all levels of the field, too. They can run it up the middle, run it through the B gaps, run it off tackle, get outside into space. These guys are so versatile. Snoop Connor, Parrish, Ely, all these guys can go make plays in all kind of different concepts, and that's what makes this rushing attack so hard to stop. I would imagine the Rebels this weekend are going to try to keep the defense off balance with the run game. Matt Corral is going to be a great, you can almost call him a point guard quarterback, where he is going to distribute the ball to his playmakers on the outside, let them go make plays in space. But the number one thing is no mistakes, man. This Texas A&M team is really great at forcing turnovers, getting to the quarterback, and forcing you into uncomfortable situations. They did it with Bo Nix last week. They've done it week in and week out. And so the number one thing is to try to stay balanced and try to keep Corral comfortable in the pocket and do not make mistakes and give A&M extra possessions and let them get this game out of hand. Now, the final thing, man, the matchup to watch for me is going to be the wide receiving core of the Rebels against the secondary for Texas A&M. This is going to be a major battle of strengths because the passing game is a key for the Rebels. And also, the Aggies have done an excellent job in shutting down the pass, and that means something has to give. Can these wide receivers go make plays against these big physical DBs for A&M, or can A&M shut down this explosive Heisman-worthy passing attack of the Rebels? Now, when you look at Ole Miss, they're averaging over 285 through the air per game. That's top three in the SEC right now. And as much credit as Matt Corral deserves, the wide receiving core has been huge for this team. And especially given that they've been banged up, they've had some unexpected contributors step up due to that. Jonathan Mingo still out, potentially out for the season, is the big loss. But they did get a lot of help last week when Braylon Sanders came back, averaging over 24 yards per catch and 3 touchdowns. He is a deep threat that A&M is going to have to try to find a way to handle, and he is a problem. Now, Dontario Drummond, over 600 yards receiving, 40 catches, 6 touchdowns will be a big part. And also, Ja'Cour Pearson was a big part of this offense against Auburn, 16 catches, over 200 yards receiving. He was a walk-on that's really stepped up due to some of these injuries that Ole Miss has had at the wide receiving spot. But as they slowly get healthy, this wide receiving core is one of the deepest and most productive wide receiving cores in the SEC, and they're going to be a big factor in this matchup this weekend. They have to create separation. They have to be explosive, make plays, and don't fall into unforced errors like drops, fumbles, anything like that. You have to play a solid game against the secondary of A&M. That's because this secondary has been one of the best in the countries, only allowing 194 yards per game through the air, less than 58% completion percentage, and only one passing touchdown per game allowed thus far this season. Top 25 in the entire country. And it all starts with some big names, man. Jalen Jones, he's allowed less than 300 yards passing against them, only 2 touchdowns and a combined 6 pass breakups or INTs or plays on the ball. Leon O'Neal of only 35% completion percentage allowed, less than 50 total yards allowed, and has a combined 6 pass breakups and INTs again. Then you got Damani Richardson, potential first-round draft pick for the Aggies. 0 touchdowns allowed this season, 2 pass breakups and picks combined for him. And then you also got Tyreek Chappell, who has 6 pass breakups and INTs combined again. These 4 guys have been the core, the nucleus of the secondary, and they're all long, they're all physical, and they're all not afraid to put their hands on you and go make plays. Matt Corral is going to face a very, very tough test this weekend against the secondary. But for Jalen Jones, O'Neal, Richardson, and Chappell, they're going to have to play big. They're going to have to play big this weekend. They're going to have to play disciplined, and they're going to have to force some turnovers. If you can force a few turnovers for Corral, get the offense off their rhythm, get a nice lead where you can play comfortably with your defense. That's going to be key. These guys are not going to shy away from the moment. They stepped up big against Alabama last week. They completely shut down Auburn's offense. This Texas A&M defense is ready for the challenge, and I would imagine the secondary against this wide receiving core is a matchup you're going to have to watch all game long. Now, I went way, way back and forth with this game, guys. I'm not going to lie. This one was a very tough one to predict because being in Oxford, I know the home field advantage that Ole Miss is going to have. Like I said, I've been to that stadium. It's electric, and one of my favorite environments in college football on a Saturday night. But then on the flip side, Jimbo Fisher and A&M have been playing on a different level over these past few weeks, and that defense is really starting to click. So for me, looking at this game, looking at how these teams have been playing over the past few weeks, I just trust A&M to make enough stops down the stretch, and I'm done doubting Zach Calzada. I got a lot of flack from A&M fans. Listen, I'm giving him his flowers, putting faith in Calzada to make the plays. The running game for Spiller and a chain is going to be too much for Ole Miss. They really struggled stopping Tate Bigsby and Jarquez Hunter just 2 weeks ago, so I really think it's going to be a heavy dose of run game, a handful of throws by Calzada to make the plays, and then it's just going to be relying on that defense to make 1 or 2 stops or force Ole Miss into a handful of mistakes. I have A&M and Jimbo Fisher escaping Oxford with a very, very close win, 31-28 over the Rebels of Ole Miss. So a 3-point win for the Rebels, for the Aggies, and I think it's going to be a highly, highly competitive game, and I just think the Aggies defense is going to be the difference along with their run game. So 31-28 Texas A&M over Ole Miss this weekend. Guys, go ahead and comment your score predictions below, your takeaways from the game, thoughts going into the game, and what you are expecting, man. I appreciate y'all tuning into the Blue Bloods, man. If you want, subscribe. Also, like the video, and also, if you want, man, become a Blue Bloods member to get exclusive content right here on the Blue Bloods, perks, discounted membership, all that good stuff, man. We got the All-American team and the Heisman Club levels. And also, if you just want to support the show, you can do that as well. But I appreciate y'all tuning in. Y'all have a great weekend, and I'll be back later today with some more previews. But for right now, man, the Blue Bloods are out.